Ninjago Dragons Rising introduced us to a lot of new characters, with one of them being Ras Master. Even though he was mentioned only a few times, he got people's attention, and ever since he was first mentioned, everyone has been wondering who is this mysterious character. In today's video we'll explore what we already know about him and determine which character suits Ras Master best. Enjoy the video. Firstly, we need to create a list of requirements that this character has to meet. So he has to be very powerful, wise, and some kind of a magical being. And now let's discuss them real quick. He's a very powerful being because in Season 2 Episode 10, when the Blood Moon ritual has ended, he moved the Shadow Dojo and the whole Wolf Mask clan from the Forest of Spirits. He also proved his wisdom by adjusting his plans to the current situation. For example, when Ninja kept interfering with his plan of undoing the merge, he captured Master Wu's ghost and sent the ninja far away from Ninjago to get rid of that problem. And in Season 2 he came up with a new plan almost immediately after they failed to release all the Forbidden 5 members during the Blood Moon ritual. If that wasn't enough, he also can provide Ras with knowledge he needs to achieve his goal. For example, where the entrance to the underworld is. And that brings us to the last requirement, which is a bit tricky. Why is that, you may ask? Well, firstly let's discuss this point. Whenever he wants to communicate with Ras, he throws him into some kind of void, like the Source Dragon's one, and tells him everything telepathically. This means that he is either communicating with him like this because he is unable to do so differently, or it's because he doesn't want to show up in person. Either way, he needs to be somehow related to magic to be able to throw Ras into this void. That's a skill no one except for Source Dragons can do, at least from what we know, and that shows us that Ras Master is someone no ordinary. Now, with the list of requirements already made, it's time to move to the topic of this video. Who is Ras Master? The first and most obvious thing that comes to my mind is that it might be one of the Source Dragons, since they have the ability to throw someone into their void, are very powerful, and of course wise due to their existence for quite some time. You may say that Source Dragons are good and there's no way one of them is Ras Master. However, we don't know almost anything about them except for the fact that they keep in the world in balance, but for this moment we only can guess it's the Source Dragon of Strength. We don't have any legit evidence, however we do have some clues that lead us this way. One of them is that Ras has been carrying the Source Dragon icon of strength throughout all this time. And another is that Ras once mentioned his master teaching him the most important thing in this universe, strength. He also talks about strength a lot, and it looks like he's obsessed with it. All these clues show that he's somehow related to the Dragon of Strength, especially the fact that he has its source icon. And you might think the mystery is solved. The Source Dragon of Strength is Ras Master and goodbye. However, there are some things that don't add up. For example, he could have gotten the Source icon in many different ways which we don't even know about. He also doesn't like the Source Dragons as he plans to use their energy to reverse the merge. And lastly, the void that Ras is thrown into when his master wants to communicate with him works a little bit different than the Source Dragon's one. What do I mean by that? Whenever Lloyd goes to the Source Dragon's void, his body stays in the same place. However, Ras floats into the sky which suddenly turns glowing red. This may mean it's a completely different void from the Source Dragon's one, and that the Source Dragon of Strength is not necessarily Ras Master. Since the Source Dragon theory raises so many problems, the next logical place to look is the opposite of the dragons, the Oni. I know it sounds ridiculous, but there are many things that indicate their reappearance in the show. For example, the action of Season 3 Part 1 mostly took place in the first realm, the realm of the Oni and the dragons. The same place where Thunderfang was defeated, and with his defeat, all the Oni souls he had absorbed were released. Of course it doesn't change a thing about Ras Master because they've met a long time ago. However, the creators might be giving us some hints that Oni will make their reappearance in the future. If you're wondering if Oni are meeting the requirements, think again, because they are literally as powerful as Source Dragons. While Source Dragons seem to be the good guys, the Oni are the opposite, demons seeking to destroy everything in their way. That sounds more like Ras Master, but we also have to keep in mind that even though destruction is the Oni's nature, it doesn't mean every Oni has to follow this path. The perfect example is Miss Take, who helped the ninja fight Garmadon in the Oni trilogy, where she reveals her true identity as Oni, showing us that not all demons are evil creatures. That's the very same reason I included Source Dragons in this list as well. And while we're at the topic of Source Dragons, why not talk about Source Oni? I know it sounds stupid, but I would love to see that in Ninjago, but not Dragons Rising. If Ninjago Dragons Rising will end with its 5th season, there's no point in introducing the Source Oni now. it would be the same as with the Forbidden 5, wasted potential. But this time it would be the biggest screw-up in the history of Ninjago. They could literally create another series, a continuation of Ninjago Dragon's Rising, named Ninjago Oni Rising, or something similar, like Oni's Downfall or whatever. And Dragon's Rising could end with massive plot twists and the return of the Oni. That would give the creators space to develop characters greatly, and could continue the franchise for another 5 years. In my opinion, a master plan. With the information we have for now, we can't exactly say if Oni will appear in Dragon's Rising, but let's just hope they do. I'm very interested in this theory and would absolutely love to see Oni Rising, but we'll see what LEGO prepares for us in the future. And now, let's move on to another possible character who is Zarkar, an ancestor of Ras. Why him? His tribe and many others were attacked and brutally killed by the Forbidden 500 years ago. He might blame Source Dragons for that because they haven't done anything to stop them. If it wasn't for Egalt and Rontu who defeated the Forbidden 5, he would be dead. Following this trail, he wants to reverse the merge and create a whole new universe where Source Dragons won't be responsible for its balance but him alone. So that people could rely on someone unlike in this universe. Another thing that suggests it might be Zarkar is Ras saying, "Your parents, my people, we can bring them back," to Arin in Season 3 on Arin's parents' fake graves. He mentions that he wants to bring back his people by reversing the merge. Of course, it could be a lie, but that's just another clue. This basically means that Ras Master wants to reverse the merge, and either Ras wants to bring back his people by doing so, or they both want to bring them back. If so, then Zarkar would be almost surely Ras Master, cause who else? Another thing is that Zarkar once failed to protect his people, and this might be the reason why he and Lord Ras are so obsessed with strength. They want to be able to protect their people, their loved ones. And what about teleportation, and how is Zarkar this powerful? This might be related to his form. Whenever Ras communicates with him, they are in this glowing void and we haven't ever seen Ras Master. It's maybe because he doesn't have a physical body just like Master Wu. He's some sort of a ghost, being able to communicate only telepathically, but being able to teleport the whole Shadow Dojo. Furthermore, Zarkar being Ras Master and reversing the merge to bring back his people makes sense, as in Ninjago there were many villains with no bad intentions, but rather with plans including doing something terrible, like reversing the merge and destroying the whole world in the process. Zarkar is certainly the best option here with the information we have for now. However, I would like to see Source Oni in the future, maybe they will appear in a different plot, who knows. But for the Source Dragon of Strength, we can almost certainly say that it's not Ras Master because there are no clues leading there and it doesn't make sense. This might also be someone who we haven't even heard of, but I don't think they would be making such an introduction to a character who we haven't met. And let's end today's video with that. If you have some theories about who might be Ras Master, feel free to share them down below in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel. And I'll see you in the next one.